See, MAGA doesn't regret their vote. They regret the consequences of their vote. And the only way that white trash MAGA, because that's what they are, is going to ever change, and most of them won't because they're too stupid and racist, is when they suffer the effects of the man that they voted for, the rapist, convicted felon who protects child molesters. Until he turns on them, until they lose their job, until they lose their health care, until they lose their dental insurance, until they lose their farms and their cars and their homes, then and only then will they actually care. Because for you, MAGA, I don't care if you lose it all. Because you didn't care about the officers that committed suicide and the effect it would have on their families. You said, I don't care. You didn't care about the women that he sexually assaulted because it wasn't your mom or your dad or your cousin or your sister. You didn't care about the victims of Epstein Island because it wasn't your daughter or your sister or your grandma. You said, I don't care. Your selfishness created this country where it is. So yeah, I hope you get every bit you voted for. And many of you thought that your white privilege would keep you safe. It's not. You know what caused people to turn on Benito Mussolini? Because this is what's going to change MAGA. Okay? He spent so much time conquering other countries. 500,000 of his own troops died in wars. He was in Ethiopia, he was in South Africa, he was everywhere. Their munitions were low, the economy was in the toilet, and there came a point where his base accepted all of the cruelty of fascism because it didn't affect them, right? But there came a point where the economy got so bad that they owned the libs, metaphorically, that they lived off of 1,000 calories a day, that they had to buy food on the black market, and they couldn't afford housing. That's when they turned on Mussolini. And then they murdered him, and they drug him to the square, and they hung him for 3 days right next to his mistress, and they stoned him. It's the same mentality as MAGA. They didn't care that Mussolini was murdering innocent people. They didn't care at all. It didn't affect them. They only cared when they were financially affected. And that's the same ideology as MAGA. And we're here because of MAGA. Because they keep owning the libs every election cycle. Look at the Ted Cruz election as an example, right? They reelected him over Beto O'Rourke, who was a great candidate. Texas is off the power grid. People were freezing to death, burning their furniture just so they wouldn't die. 22 people died. You know what Ted Cruz did? He went to Mexico. While the people of his state were freezing to death. And you know what Texas did? Own the libs, baby! I don't care if Ted Cruz lets us die. I'm going to vote for Ted Cruz because I'm a dumbass. Yeehaw! Because they don't care about making Texas better. They're too stupid and selfish and stuck in a cult of ignorance. Schadenfreude is a word I use a lot. It means that people love the suffering of others. When you hear own the libs, that's what it is. See, when MAGA look in the mirror with their 6 teeth and their 3 brain cells, they don't like what they see. So they blame the mirror. Own the libs. Own the libs. It's not the mirror's fault. It's your fault for creating the situation. Because every midterms and every general cycle, you vote against somebody instead of for something. You vote for Republicans who give you a list of grievances for your shitty life and your 6 teeth while you're having sex with your cousin and going to Klan rallies and living in your trailer. You have to hook up to your liberals' Wi-Fi because you're too poor to afford it yourself. This year, we're going to blame immigrants and then Muslims and then black people and DEI and CRT. Ooh, it's the radical left. It's the Democrats. It's her email. It's Hunter's laptop. It's Antifa. And you buy into it because you're too stupid. because you just want to vote against something. And the only way this country is going to change is when white people get a fraction of the cruelty that they've been putting on black people for hundreds of years. That's just a fact. And the reality is, Americans that didn't even vote for this still don't want to accept why they still did it. They overlooked the felonies, the sexual assault, the child molestation, January 6th, tax fraud, infidelities, because they couldn't vote for the black woman. That's why. Harris wasn't a perfect candidate, but she wasn't a felon. She was not a rapist. She wasn't on Epstein Island, but you convinced yourself what? You didn't like her laugh. She slept her way to the top. The dude literally just paid a woman $5 million for assaulting her in a dressing room. And you're fucking disgusting. Have the day you voted for. This is what you wanted. It has to come to MAGA. It has to come back to them. They're going to have to lose and suffer. And unfortunately, whether we like it or not, we're all going to have to go through this horse show together. And I'm going to be very honest with white people. For all of you that aren't even standing up and willing to sacrifice your comfort, it's coming for you too. You're not innocent in this. You have the privilege of sitting down and shutting your mouth while people are in concentration camps in this country. 8 million people on a Saturday at the Last No Kings protest out of 340 million people. Yeah, you're not serious about this. You don't care either. You're complicit too. The Republicans is Derek Chauvin murdering George Floyd, and white people that are unwilling to be uncomfortable are sitting by are the 3 officers that stood by and watched it happen. You're just as complicit. You're not willing to do what's uncomfortable. So this goes for people whether you voted for Trump or not. You're going to have to suffer the effects of your vote and of your white silence. That's the only way this country's going to change. And I'm going to say something that you're not going to like, but it is what it is. If white people don't stand up and actually fix the problem like I'm talking about and actually address white supremacy, I hope the Republicans win. And I'm going to tell you why. Not because they're good. They're not going to do anything. They're going to burn the whole thing to the ground. That's why I want them to win. Because until white people feel the effects of their white silence, of their damn privilege that they sit behind, while people are in damn concentration camps, you're not going to change. And my fear is that if the Democrats win the midterms, white people are going to be complacent and stop fighting for equality. Because that is what's happening. You see back here? Those weeds? When I take the weeds out, I don't cut off the top of it. I pull it out by the root. And the reason we're here is because MAGA's little white trash base with 6 teeth, during the Civil War, we cut the top of the weed off and we left the root. And over the years, it grew back because we never punished the Confederacy. And it went from a white hood to a red hat. That's it. Now they're just openly racist. Your friends and family, Donald Trump didn't make them this way. They were always shitty people. Now you're seeing them for who they are because they're not afraid to be in the closet. So it's good that this country, the one good thing that came out of Harris losing is that now we get to address white supremacy. And white people, if you don't start speaking up and using your damn privilege and get your ass out in the streets and demanding change, then your silence is going to come back just like it is to MAGA because you're just as complicit. We will not remember the words of our enemies, rather the silence of our friends. Evil succeeds when white people do nothing. And I just watched Spider-Man today. With great power comes great responsibility, white people. I interviewed one of my, I think she's my friend, I hope she is, Dr. Akila Kadeh. And she said something to me. She goes, Paul, I can write as many books about white supremacy, as many videos, YouTube shorts. It's not going to matter because I'm a black woman. You, as a white guy, when you say it, it holds more weight because it has to come from somebody that benefits from the system that this country was built on. So as much as I want MAGA to suffer for their consequences, and God knows they have to, I also want every white person that's still sitting in your privilege that won't speak out because you're worried about upsetting your brother-in-law or sister-in-law or grandma or grandpa, or because you want Thanksgiving, you are just as complicit as MAGA, just in a different way. Have a good day.